Hi, and welcome to Red's cinematography series, Behind the Look. My name is Naida Albright, and I work with filmmakers for Red. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of meeting with Rawson Marshall Thurber and Markus Förderer for the action thriller, Red Notice. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Very exciting to have you. So, have you guys worked together before?
Yeah, the first time I got to work with Markus was on the reshoots we did for Skyscraper. So it was about a week long, and it was a fantastic collaboration. And when I got to do my next movie, he was my first call, my only call, and thank God he said yes.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to show the trailer in a minute, but listen, I heard there's no blue screen or green screen in this film. Is that true?
Yeah, so our approach was to try to shoot as much as possible in camera with practical effects, building practical sets with a fantastic production designer. We built huge sets on the back lot and on stage, and wherever we couldn't build anything real, use technologies like a video wall or rotoscoping where necessary, but try to avoid any artifice. And I think, Ross, in our early conversations, it was, I think, really important to you, right, to create a classy look that stands the test of time. So we tried to capture as much as possible, practical.
Kind of like the old-fashioned romantic action thriller.
Yeah, I mean, from our earliest conversations about Red Notice, we wanted it to be in sort of an old school Hollywood swashbuckler. Big stars, big action, big laughs. That was
wonderful. Well, why don't we take a look at the trailer right now?
Special Agent John Hartley, FBI. Been tracking your scores for a while now. Every city, every heist. Now that you've been tagged with red notices, you become the world's most wanted criminals. And I'm the only one who can bring you in.
Where'd you get that jacket? It's a statement piece. Somewhere there's a very nude cow whispering, worth it. No, you heard about me,
Looking for something specific or just browsing?
You're under arrest.
Oh my God, read the room.
Girls will keep the secret. You wanna arrest me?
So long the boys make a noise.
Arrest me.
I just want the egg.
Yeah.
Help me catch her, and I will help you.
Teamwork.
Live and direct, you know we get that.
Team. It feels weird in my mouth.
No tolerance. You heard about us, right? Yeah. All around the world, it'll only get bigger. Hello, boys. Yeah. How's it going with your partner in crime?
We're work wives. We're not work wives.
Sister wives.
We're not any kind of wives. We both know that this whole thing is going to end with you in handcuffs.
Promises. Promises.
Know you heard about me, right?
Bye-bye, Agent John Hartley.
Yeah. Live and direct, you know we get that.
I just changed the light. I'm hijacking this. I'm sorry.
Wait.
I just changed, while you were watching the trailer, I changed the tint 1 degree on the sky panel. 1 degree. And he gets up and he's like, one moment. Runs over to the light. It's like, I see something.
That's why he's.
I couldn't see what I was doing. 1 degree.
Jared Land.
Hey!
I love
We've
it.
got Jared Land. Listen, that trailer looks hilarious. That's big action. That is big movie stars. It looks very expensive. I would like to know, like, how do you plan a project like this? What kind of creative pre-production do you do?
Well, I mean, I think when you set out to eat an elephant, it's one bite at a time, right? And so it's one shot at a time, one setup at a time, one idea at a time. And Markus and I were really meticulous from the very, very earliest part of it was actually in this room here at Red. We were of course, we're going to use the Red camera system, and we came into this theater and watched a bunch of movies that we thought would be great inspiration for our film, and then from there we, tested lenses and looked at them in this very room, and then
fantastic.
Step by step by step, shot by shot, scene by scene.
Start building it up.
What movies did you guys watch? Do you remember?
God, what did we watch? We watched. Oh no, I don't remember any of them.
We watched the sequences of Bond movies.
Bond movies, yep. Mission movies.
Mission movies.
True Lies, of course.
Good examples, and also things maybe to learn why don't we like certain sequences, right? Just to learn from navigating, because if you start with a script, right, there's so many options, and it's good to find your boundaries. Oh, this could work, and this doesn't. Why is that it doesn't work? And,
Yeah.
so that was a really great experience.
Yeah, we both Thomas Crown Affairs, the original and the remake. Oceans, of course. We didn't watch Raiders, but I think it's pretty much.
You gotta do that in this
It's
theater, too.
pretty well committed to memory. Man from U.N.C.L.E., which kind of a more recent thing in terms of lensing and style, and sort of international travel. But Markus is right. We would watch more than stem to stern on a picture. We'd watch sequences and talk about them.
And are you talking to Jared too about the camera speeds, custom cameras that he's got working on for you guys? Oh,
Funny you should ask, Naida. Funny you should ask.
What's that?
That's great.
Yeah, we very early on with Jared and everybody here at Red, we talked about creating a bespoke camera for Red Notice.
That's great.
And so Markus handled most of the technical requirements, and all I had to do was sign it.
No. There was a lot. It's really cool, this whole custom program we do, because as I was telling you before, last week we just took that camera to our product team and showed them some elements. The color is all you. Come on.
These are
but
my favorite
integrating the nano locket into the side of the camera, removing some of the ports, changing some of the, that's this little cheese plate here, which I love. But these buttons, that's actually the locket buttons.
And this is the Monstro Ranger, right?
Yes.
That you've and
We're going to be moving on to the Raptor for sure for your next one. But it was a cool exercise because you can't really. You ask a filmmaker or a DP what their perfect camera is, and if you ask 10 of them, you're going to get 10 different answers, really. So it's one of my favorite parts of this whole thing is making this stuff, because we spent a lot of time, and Matt spent a lot of time with you, and Matt has this series of questions. You kind of feel like you're in a job application for design. What inspires you?
Yeah, it really was that, I felt.
It's cool though. It's this kind of brain. He makes a brain tree and then can kind of zero in and help you get to, something that reflects you. And then with Markus, who we've worked for years, it's long overdue for him to have some technical input. But I love this camera. I love that it just sits on my desk. One of the cameras that sits
Mine
on
too.
my desk. Yeah, I know, but
I'm glad this one made your desk. That's awesome.
I hope so, but it's a beautiful camera, but it's functional because we still use it for referencing.
Well, let's talk about the sensor and how you chose your lenses for Red Notice. In terms of, we talked about that a little bit, just the right look for this kind of feature.
So usually, early on, Ross mentioned, we shot a series of tests and projected them on a big screen. And it, for me, it always starts with the lens first, trying to find the right lens, and then see what kind of sensor size, what kind of camera matches up with that. And so we found these really beautiful auto-penetars and ultra-penetar lenses at Panavision, and we managed to get some of the original lenses from Ben-Hur, they were made in the 50s, amazing glass. And we tested it with a series of all cameras out there, and there was something special about the Monstro and that large format glass that just stood out for us, right?
Yeah, it just sort of, it's sung on screen as soon as you saw it, and felt different than anything else. And also what I thought was so poetic about the choice was that we, as Markus said, we chose this sort of old school anamorphic glass, Lawrence of Arabia, Ben-Hur, and they don't make them anymore. And then we used the most cutting edge technology available with the Red Monstro 8K here. And it was this blend of old school Hollywood and sort of new school tech that gave this sort of beautiful, unprecedented look, and that's what we were going for.
Well, there's two scenes that you can see in the trailer that I think really stand out, and we're going to run the trailer again, but without any sound. But before we do, I want you to talk a little bit about the prison break scene and all the in-camera effects that you did, and then, you know, in terms of explosions and how you use the Komodo, and then the other one was the Komodos in the tunnel. So tell us a little bit about those, and then we'll watch the trailer again, and you guys can kind of talk over it and point that out to us.
Yeah. So the prison, like all big sequences on a big movie, you usually have to break it up into pieces. But we managed to build a huge. Like, it was not practical to go really in the snow mountains with our kind of setup. So we built a huge set on the back lot and shot. Like, we used a blend of handheld, like really gritty handheld, to capture the action. Like the set was huge. We had practical snow, wind, and a real helicopter. The helicopter was hung on a crane to move it around and navigate. So all visual effects had to do is like put in rotor blades and paint out the wires. And the idea was also to make this feel as tactile and real as possible. And then there's pieces shot on stage in front of a video wall when Ryan jumps into a helicopter, again to avoid any artifice of blue screen. And that's where also this camera came into play. Like earlier when we talked, I knew this, reading the script, there's so many action scenes in tight spaces, like a helicopter or cars, that Mineshaft chase. So we need a system, that was even, I think, before the Komodo was announced, I said we need a system that's as compact as possible, but gives us this large format look to pair up with those lenses. And I think this is where this camera comes into play, because it minimizes.
Yeah, when you strip it down, I mean, you can almost put it anywhere. And this isn't even the Komodo, which was the next sort of level for us when Jared talked to us about what was coming next. Markus and I sort of both rubbed our hands together greedily, and we couldn't wait. I mean, a 6K camera that's about the size of a tissue box is hard to believe. And then we found the greatest race drone operator in the world, a young man named Johnny FPV. That's his handle, and he's unbelievable. And I think we were a little bit nervous, hoping that he would be able to use his race drone with the Komodo. It had never been done before, and we strapped it on there. And I saw the first test of it, and my jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe it, and we were about to go shoot stuff that quite literally had never been shot in the history of cinema.
Yeah, tell me about that, if you don't mind. Like,
Sure.
What did you see that made you want to go?
Well, I mean, if you ever see, you know,
So cool.
the best race drone operators in the world, and Johnny is #1. You know, the way they can move the camera and the way they can fly their camera. But usually these are GoPros. These are you know, perfectly 4K GoPros, which are not cinema quality. But the way that he could get shots in tight spaces that are impossible to get any other way. And Markus and I decided, like, well, we have to do this, and we were the first ever to do it in a film, because the technology didn't exist until about 6 weeks before we shot.
Well, you're plugged in.
I remember when Johnny came here and he did that test in stage 1.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that footage.
It was just, it blew. Was the Komodo was just released, right?
Yeah, I think it was not really.
It wasn't even
It
out
wasn't
yet.
like public,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
well,
we
it
didn't even
was
have
teasing that thing for a year,
Stormtroopers
so
out, yeah.
it kind of was released, but not. But that was one of those moments where I thought, holy shit, this is something special. And Johnny was so nervous. I'm like, dude, I gotta show people this. He's like, no, not yet, not yet, not yet.
He's a perfectionist like this
he
guy.
was like, yeah, it's the first time it's ever been done. And he was whipping this thing around inside a sound stage, right up against the wall and then back. And I was like, oh, I told him, like I tell you, I'm like, break it. If you need to get the shot, break it.
That's right. You do say that.
Absolutely. I mean,
We try not to.
try not to. Thank you very much.
So Johnny shot a bunch of sequences for us with the Komodo cam. He shot the opening shot of the film, which we got in Rome, which is a big tracking shot that starts as a high wide establishing of Rome, and you think it might be your standard helicopter shot, and then it dive bombs down into a narrow alley, races across a bridge and toward the Castle San Angelo. And it's a pretty great way to grab your audience by the lapels. And then we also shot inside our museum stage set piece in Atlanta, And we have a mineshaft chase sequence where Markus and I in Atlanta went to a limestone mine about 400 feet underground, and Johnny came down there. We had our cars down there. We had a chase sequence in this mineshaft, and Johnny wears these first-person viewer goggles on. And I remember, like, the first time he was countering the cars coming at him because he was going to counter with the camera and whip back around. But it's so dark in there, and the headlights are so bright that it blinded him as he was going. Sorry, it blinded him, and he came around, but he still did the shot. And then, yeah, I've never seen him. That's the only time I've ever seen him sweat. But otherwise, he's unflappable.
That shot, I remember visiting you guys and watching the playback of that shot.
Yeah.
And that was the second time where I thought, holy shit, we got something good here, because there was just nothing. You've never seen that good footage.
Yeah.
On something that small, moving so fast in the tunnel was small.
Yeah.
But then you have, I don't know how much you show in the trailer. You show there's vehicles
the
in
trailer.
there. There's vehicles. So, I mean, there's not a lot of room for him to be going around. And I was like, wow, this just changes
everything.
This part of the game. It just really...
I think really pairing the Komodo with that race drone was the game changer. Yep. Early on, we found Johnny and we talked, and like you said, usually it's GoPros or DSLRs, and in big movies you can always tell you cut to some lower quality. And when we heard about the Komodo, like, we have to make this work. And especially in the Mineshaft, that was his first days, and I was nervous too because I knew we would really go to the edge of possible exposure with the big cameras. It's like a pitch black Mineshaft. And I knew now we have to fly the Komodo, which is a smaller sensor, and it turned out beautiful.
Beautiful.
And that's when we learned as we went along, right? We saw how well he can navigate in tight spaces. So when we came back going on soundstage, we thought, like, why not integrate it into handheld camera work on interior corridors and try to make it feel like it's a part of a handheld sequence. And I think this worked really great.
Oh, it was fantastic. The film opens with a foot chase between Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds through a museum. And normally you would shoot that, you know, either handheld, or you could do it a little bit of a Steadicam, or you could chase with, you know, a dolly if you want. And Markus said, well, why don't we just bring Johnny back for this? And I essentially slapped my forehead like a cartoon. I was like, of course. And so Johnny would chase Ryan as Ryan jumped over a table and went under a table, and he would follow right behind and whip around. And then there's a scaffolding sequence that starts the picture. And Johnny started high and wide as Ryan comes into the room, chases down to goes over a table, up into the scaffolding, under the scaffolding bars, wraps around and comes out. And then another time he followed a stunt player who fell through a trap door in the scaffolding, and Johnny, followed with the camera all the way down to impact. And just shots you could never get any other way.
Yep.
And then I think it doesn't feel like a traditional drone, right? It feels, and we intercut it with handheld footage. It really...
Yeah, and you can stay in those shots so long because they're 6K. You don't have to just use like 12 frames. You know, you can use 5 seconds if you want, or 10.
Well, I'm guessing also it changes the way you write. You're the writer and director of Red Notice, and so with this knowledge, does it change when you're writing your next project? Do you think, oh, you know what, I can put this in here now?
I'm already thinking about that. Yes. It opens up a new world when you're talking about how you're going to photograph anything, really.
And it's not like gobs of money, you know,
like
it's blue screen. Or
well, you could ask Johnny.
Wait till I show you what's next.
I can't wait. Are we going to find out right now? Let's find out right now.
Oh my God!
Let's craft some. Did you get, when you were writing it? Did you have Ryan in your mind, or did you luck out with that one?
No, he was definitely forefront of my mind when I was writing it. I've been a fan forever, and there are very few actors who can do what he can do, which is sort of, you know, muscular action, drama, but also comedy.
Which is what I think of you and your, I mean, it's perfect. I mean, I love the guy. He's from my hometown, but you're right. It's that combination, which is so rare, and it's rare in a director too. I mean, and it's funny because you're using like Mission Impossible as references and stuff, but you're more like, at least the stuff you've done before, very comedy oriented, and it's very rare to see somebody from the comedy world kind of step into
the action.
You know, and that's super cool because you have like, you know, you have the Ratner kind of tried around this side, but nothing's really like the old 80s, 90s
Yeah.
comedy. You know
That's
what,
what
I'm
that's
talking
what I know
about?
exactly.
Dude,
That's what I came up
kind
with.
of peg you as,
Yeah.
is this kind of like comedy action, like the
Yeah, they're my two
Ivan,
favorite things.
Ivan Reitman kind of.
That's what I grew up on. Yeah,
That's the guy. And I'm like, when I met you,
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, this is the guy that's gonna slide in there and nobody's paying attention.
Oh, we need it
I
so
mean, because
much.
you
Surprise
was,
some folks.
because you did you write Dodgeball?
I read everything.
Wow, Dodgeball and
We're the Millers.
We're the Millers.
We're
and
the
Central
Millers, and that's more on the comedy theme.
For
and
sure,
then you
for
kind
sure.
of jump in with you get the Rock,
Mhm.
the Ryan Reynolds kind of. That's what got me excited with you, and that's why I was
Yeah.
like, fuck, dude, I want this guy to be in the red camp forever, because
Thank
it's so rare. You know, you have Michael Bay that
Sure.
does
He's
it better
amazing.
than anybody,
Yep.
and you have the guys that do that, and then you have the comedy guys, but the
Trying to put 'em
people
together.
that
Yeah.
bring them together. And you said, you know, there's so few actors that can do that.
Very few.
Ryan's on that very short
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Dwayne,
That's what
Dwayne can
made
do it, too.
and Dwayne too. Absolutely.
he's hilarious.
But that's really cool. That's why I got excited about as soon as you told me about, and what a magical pairing
Oh my God.
with
Well,
Markus
I'm
too,
excited,
because
yeah.
like it's same thing. Like this guy, good looking dude. You don't know if like when I met him, both of these guys.
Thank you.
But when I met Markus, I was like, is this guy 60 years old or is he 20 years old?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't figure
Somewhere in
out.
between.
Not just from how he looks, because he's got gray hair, or a little bit, but he's so meticulous and he's like one of those old school DPs,
Yeah.
like old school. He's got that hand, but on the tech side, he's got that use and that knowledge.
Perfect combo.
And again, a perfect combo that's super rare. So it's like
I mean, yeah.
you two together.
Oh,
Jesus
thanks,
Christ,
Jared.
look
Well, I
at
hope we get to do it many, many more times, as long as you'll have me.
Well,
But go ahead.
you
sorry.
want to watch the trailer again? You guys, we're gonna watch it.
Sorry for keep hijacking
No,
your
it's
question.
you're supposed to. It's perfect. You just trust me I'll stop you guys whenever I want. So we're gonna watch the trailer again. You guys just talk over it, talk through it.
okay.
So when it rolls, because point out those scenes, kind of thing.
Sure. This is the beginning of our Komodo shot with Johnny FPV.
It's all cut in the trailer, obviously, but in a movie, it's a long shot that hooks up to a Steadicam shot at the end,
Yeah.
introducing
Dwayne
character.
right here. Yep.
No,
And that was
whatever.
Jeff Haley on the Steadicam, who won the Operator of the Year for Joker about 2 years ago. Fantastic.
Great sets too.
Great. Andy Nicholson, our production designer. Here's our Komodo shot right here. That opens the film. Andy Nicholson, our production designer, did an incredible job.
Yeah, right. The movie
Very,
takes.
very, very honored that, when we talked and you were stuck on trying to figure out what the title of the movie should be. I suggested just put red and something else in. And
Yeah,
you're
it was
like,
originally
"Hey."
Blue Notice, and then Jared.
Yeah, just
and I had a
filled
lot
in
of
that
covers.
little thing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful set. Like we try to integrate all the lighting.
Yeah, that was
Because
in New Mexico, yeah?
No, all Atlanta.
Oh, that's
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry, Atlanta. Yeah.
And there's a
Atlanta.
big fight sequence coming, so we knew we would destroy that whole place. So there's no way to hide movie lights. So we built them all into set pieces, and that was a fun sequence to shoot.
Absolutely. Took a while, but it was fun. And Richard Hoover was our visual effects supervisor, Academy Award winner from
fantastic.
Blade Runner 2049. He was unbelievable. That was one of the first things he came to me with was like, he's like, no green screen, no blue screen. We're going to roto everything. And that was music to my ears and Marcus's ears as well.
And you finished right before.
No, we didn't. We were halfway through shooting when the pandemic hit, and we had to
Whoa.
shut down for 6 months.
You were the last one. I think you were the last set I visited.
Yeah,
that's
that,
what
that
I
would
mean.
make sense.
It
Couple
was
days
like
later, we
a
had
week
to-
later or 2 weeks later.
This is the
Mineshaft.
Mineshaft. Yeah.
Oh, this
I
shot.
see. Yeah, we crashed a Komodo or two. in
Yeah,
this.
when we flipped the Jeep, it took out our drone and our Komodo camp. But we got the shot, which is actually in the
That's
movie
all
and in
that
the
I
trailer.
care about.
It's so robust, right? It rolls around like a
Yeah.
dice, but footage it plays back, no problem. Dust it off.
So
and
here's
ready
your
to go.
big escape.
Yeah, this is practically.
Yeah. It
done.
looks big, but it's a practical explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know Rawson, like the visual effect guys, special effect guys did a test. How do you like it, Rawson? Oh, you want to go bigger? He's like, bigger. Another one, let's go bigger. And it's amazing, and I think that hopefully makes it feel grounded, a real set, real explosion.
Well, do tell me about how you hid the Komodos. You were telling me that you were putting them in places in a shot like that you would have been able to.
Yeah, right. The amazing is the small form factor that we could hide them within a shot, like with certain shots like this explosion, you get maybe one take, like the reset time would take forever. So you try to get as many good angles as possible in one. So we were placing Komodos in the middle of the scene while our stunt performer was running, and we had our A camera going, a drone in the air, cranes, and we captured it pretty much in the first take.
And we did one take.
And then it was either they're so small you don't notice, or it's super easy to paint them out. Traditionally, if you hide a bigger camera, you need a big crash housing, which is a big tank and all this. And sometimes at the last minute, right, you see like, oh, maybe it would be great to have one here, and you can just pop it there.
Pop it in there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's what we love.
I really like that.
And it's actually cheaper than the crash housing.
Yeah,
the crazy
really
part.
crazy. And also I would say, Rawson, because you're also, like we were talking about it being a comedy director, is it helpful for the actors as well to have more space and like more time if you have more cameras rolling?
What a great question. Absolutely. Well, early on, there's Ryan and Dwayne, their characters, Nolan Booth and John Hartley, end up in prison together in sort of a scary Russian prison at the top of a mountain. And this was, I think, the second week of shooting, and Markus and I had talked about how we wanted to execute it. And one thing that I really wanted to do was when Ryan and Dwayne were sitting down to shoot opposing coverage simultaneously. And some cinematographers don't enjoy doing that, and some are not very good at it. But Markus, I won't say he enjoyed it, but he's very good at it. And we managed to shoot simultaneous coverage over Dwayne to Ryan and over Ryan to Dwayne at the same time. And that makes your editor's life a dream, of course. But more importantly, when you're dealing with comedy and you're dealing with sometimes improvisational comedy, and that back and forth and that rat-a-tat-tat, shooting opposing coverage at the same time is incredibly important, because you never miss the moment, right? Ryan could say something funny, Dwayne could have a great reply, and if you're only pointed at one actor and you have to wait to come around, sometimes that magic, that sort of pixie dust that you get in that moment, you've lost. And so that's something that I try to do every time I can with comedy.
Oh, I love hearing that.
I love Lucy Way.
That's right.
It is. It is.
Right here.
And right, like traditionally comedies might be a little more brighter and a bit more flat, but
Right.
all the references we talked about, we never, I think, we knew this movie would be funny, like with your script and these guys, we've wanted the movie to feel grounded and real, right, and not go too heavy in the comedy direction. And it was interesting, it was a good challenge for me, like placing multiple cameras, but keeping the lighting interesting.
Yeah.
But that's, like I said early on, and I totally understood and saw what magic happened in front of camera, to give the actors this flexibility. And it's like a nice, interesting puzzle, like where to place the camera and the light, to be out of the shot and still get the highest quality possible.
What about that filter too, real quick, the stocking filter?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that what you call it?
Yeah, the silk stocking.
What is that all
I don't know,
about?
what would you call it?
Old
Markus?
school.
It's
Yeah.
super old school.
See, old school DP right here. That's
So that's
taking
right where
notice.
we talked about combining like latest technology, 8K high resolution sensor, pairing it with traditional techniques. And you might know from the golden age of Hollywood, like in all these black and white movies with like a Marlene Dietrich having this aura and glow. And I was always fascinated by it, and we did some tests, and I showed you, right, wouldn't it be interesting for Gal or for parts of the movie? And we tried all kinds of techniques in front of the lens, behind the lens, and that's where also the flexibility of the Red camera system comes in, where you can swap mounts and do some really interesting things like putting filters behind the lens. So we tried to establish this kind of glow. So every time you see Gal Gadot in a movie, there's some.
She doesn't need a lot
I was
of help.
going to say, thank God.
But it was more. Well, so it's this old school trick from I think the 40s, where maybe even the 30s. I don't know, late 30s probably, where you would get a literal silk stocking and you cut a little round patch of it and put it behind the lens and in front of the camera, and it gives this beautiful kind of bloom to highlights essentially. And depending on the density of the silk and the way it's woven, you have different level of bloom.
It's ingenious.
Right? And
What did you use Dior? What did you
well,
use?
they stopped making them in the,
I know,
in the 80s, and so they don't make these silk stockings anymore. It's all synthetic, and so there's like this last, group,
batch.
batch, and all these
All the big DPs are
all the
sharing
old
it.
school.
And
Yeah,
You need
They
connections.
trade them like baseball cards.
Cool.
They
It's,
really do. It's insane.
Really?
Like,
I didn't know that.
There's some that they're literally some of the old school filmmakers, cinematographers. They'll have fridge full of film, Polaroid and stuff
Wow.
that they know is going out, and then you'll just see a pile of stockings. You're like, wow.
That's
And
crazy.
like you said, right, like Gal doesn't need any help to look gorgeous
Yeah.
on camera, but it was more like to convey this memory of this glamorous time or this glamorous
It's like the George Horrell.
filmmaking. Yeah.
oh yeah, that's a good point.
Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was the photo backing, the use, the helicopter scene, and your video wall technology coupled with all this traditional in-camera filmmaking. Talk about that and why you went in that direction.
Like, yeah, in the script, there's all these exotic places like a jungle, waterfall, and we knew from a practical standpoint, and also when the pandemic hit, there's only so much you can travel, and that also the look we wanted to achieve, that it would be way better for us to shoot on stage as much as possible, control the lighting, and give us as much shooting time and time with the actors as possible. So there's this jungle sequence, and usually people immediately think like, oh, there's gonna be green screen and we extend the jungle, but I knew from my previous experience working with photo backings that this is the right tool for us, having real trees in the mid-ground, and then we had massive photo backing, and this again gives the actors a place to feel grounded and find their character, and then the editors see right away what they're getting, and then maybe there's a wide shot which might need a little touch-up, but 95% or so you get in camera, and it's pretty much like a video wall, just without parallax. People are now it's the latest, right? Everyone wants to shoot video wall,
course.
but I'm a big fan of photo backings for whenever it's far enough.
Yeah,
away.
if it's far enough and you have foreground and midground, you don't really notice the parallax, the lack of parallax rather.
And in video wall, so there's a couple of sequences like the Mineshaft chase
right
where there's really dangerous stunts going on. So we knew for certain shots we can't have the actors in moving vehicles while they're jumping cars, and we didn't want to go blue screen. So we had this huge video wall, but it's all live plates we shot ourselves in the Mineshaft.
Yeah.
So it's photographic plates. There's no CG backgrounds to make it feel as real as possible. We just went, instead of 3D tracking, we went with a larger wall, go a bit further away to get a sense of parallax. Used smoke and wind, every trick in the book to...
How hard was that for you to kind of, both of you, to wrap your head around actually shooting, especially when the parallax, but it sounds like you kind of got around that, because that can kind of screw with your brain and the actors too. But how hard was that from a technical standpoint, kind of figuring out the video wall part of this?
I mean, for me, not difficult at all, because I didn't have to figure out anything. I just had to say, Markus, figure it out. And then he's like, you got it. And that's one of the great things, and one of the many great things about Markus, as you were saying earlier, Jared, is, you know, he has an artist's eye and a technician's mind. So he doesn't miss a trick, and he's always looking for what is the new piece of technology that can help me achieve the look that I want. He's not afraid of it. He embraces it, and he's incredibly fast. And I have to say that shooting this movie, there's no way we could have done it without Markus, and without how fast he is, and how smart he is at problem solving, and how meticulous he is. So that, which I really appreciate. But in terms
you can see it when you visit these guys' set. It's such like a engineered, perfect. I mean, it's the opposite of you guys have both been in my office, which is like a tornado explosion.
Mad
but
scientist
it's just
lab.
amazing. Like everything is just so organized from both of your sides, though. This is the thing, and you know, being the writer, you kind of have that responsibility / liability. But how organized everything was, and how it just felt like you were in a creative space, which you'd think visiting every movie would be like that, but unfortunately they're
not always that
Especially,
way.
and unfortunately, as the budget rises, it usually you lose that kind of feeling, that, you know, that passion in there. And I just remember when I saw you guys and your machine that you built to make this movie, how it felt like this was this little independent kind of movie. With these massive video walls and massive sets, and I mean, you guys weren't fucking around.
But it wasn't excessive. It sounds like it was everything
just
you needed. It
so
was just streamlined. And
I think that's the great thing about Rawson being the writer-director, right? You're not, like I said, in a lot of big movies, people might just cover endlessly stuff, but you know exactly what you need. Like, we don't shoot endless coverage. It's like this beat, we didn't quite nail yet. We do it again until we get it, and then we move on, right? It's I really enjoyed it.
But also, Markus and I started in prep. We went through the entire film, and we shot listed every single scene. And so a lot of times, you know, and sometimes you throw that stuff away, but at least you've done your homework. And most times we came up with, you know, 2 or 3 shots that, per scene that we thought would be really cool, and it ended up. Most of them ended up in the film itself. But Markus is so incredibly calm in the pocket, which I really like. Like on set, there's no screaming, there's no yelling, there's no frustration.
I can't even imagine him doing that. Yeah.
No, right? And and when you're especially when you're trying to do comedy, like that kind of energy doesn't help anybody. But one thing we used the video wall for, we used it for the helicopter, we used it for the Mineshaft, we used it for the yacht, which was unbelievable. There's a scene at the end when some of our heroes are on a yacht in Sardinia, and we shot that. We built a boat and put it on the soundstage, and you would never know how it's a combination of the video wall, and we had a small tank on a stage, and that was it. But also we shot on a train, so we got a train car because there's a scene with Ryan and Dwayne on a train, and we decided that the way we were going to shoot it is Ryan would be looking out one side of the train, and we would start the camera pointed right at the video wall at the vista, and we were going to pull back into an over on Ryan. He would turn, start saying his line, and the camera would swing around to Dwayne, who's looking at the other side of the train car, to the other video wall.
The whole thing.
Right. So we wanted to try to, you know, trick the audience into believing that we were on a train in Spain and not in the rain. And and so we wanted to use 2 video walls at the same time, and so we brought, you know, what we called the postage stamp over to Ryan's side, which is a little bit of a smaller, more mobile LED wall, and we pulled back and did the whole shot. But for me, what was kind of funny is one of my all-time favorite films is Sullivan's Travels, which is a Preston Sturges film, and I rewatched it recently. I watch it a couple times a year, but there's a train sequence in Sullivan's Travels where Lana Turner and Joel McRae are on the lam, and they basically use the same technology that we were using in Red Notice, where they have a train car on a stage, and they shake it, and they blow some wind, and they use rear projection, which is they would have used a video, but it's what's so funny about it is it's exactly the same process.
So funny.
And it looked really good.
Yeah.
So you went into, you didn't, I mean, was there any technical kind of scenes, or you were just complete creative tool with the wall? I mean, you weren't concerned about the technical. It sounds like Markus kind of carried that for you, but you went right into how can we use this tool?
Yes, how do we use this to tell the story, right? Yeah. But also, how can we use this in a way in which you might be able to fool the audience into thinking that you didn't use technology, right? So how do we take this technology that people go, oh, I think, you know, they could have just done it this way, and how do we do the magic trick in such a way where they could never believe that we used the video walls. So that's why we tried to use both at the same time.
So back, and we kind of went around, who did you use for the video wall to drive it? And was it scary for you to kind of take on that challenge, or was it pretty?
So yeah, we had great partners at Lux Machina. They're very experienced, and I used video walls before in different capacities with game engine, without, and with all that experience and knowing the kind of look we wanted to achieve, I knew the best way for us to go is photographic plates, no CG, no live, what they call virtual production, because we're getting the most photoreal look by projecting real background images. There was not much prep time. Usually on a movie of this size, you would do endless weeks of testing, but the way the schedule was and everything, I knew we would shoot those plates, and like a couple days later, we have to put them on the wall, be ready to go. And that really helped that I've done it before in smaller scale. But it took some convincing for, of course, producers. A lot of people haven't had the experience yet, so it's unknown, and it's of course an expensive way to go. It saves you, I think, money in the long run, but it's one of those tools, unlike 3D, which is kind of weird, and I think the
viewers didn't really like it anyways. It's one of those technologies, unlike virtual reality or 3D, which it's hard for the customers, but also the filmmakers to kind of navigate.
Yep.
How do I tell the story differently? And like you said, one of your favorite films, it's basically the exact same thing. This is basically green screen, but you're just replacing the green screen
But it's
on
yeah,
set.
it's the writer director.
And you get the advantage of the lighting, which
Well,
is
you
the
get-
biggest.
You get the lighting, right? You get the interactive lighting. You get the reflections.
Yep.
It's also better for performance, so the actors know what they're looking at. And it was Veronica Lake, not Lana Turner. I'm so sorry.
Lana
I
was
feel like
fine.
an idiot. Veronica Lake, her first performance, by the way, ever.
I have to watch that now.
Oh, it's so good.
I've never seen it.
So good. But back to what Markus was saying earlier about the look of Red Notice, of wanting it to look like what it's supposed to be, which is a big globe-trotting action adventure sort of heist, and that we talked earlier about just let the words be the funny part, and the lens and the light does not need to be funny, and shouldn't be, and isn't.
Well, I think it's,
which is a great combination, and that goes back to that skill that you both bring to kind of be that I'm telling you, it's been missing in the movie world for the last, seriously, since the 80s, 90s, there hasn't been that mashup between
True
the
Lies
two.
was one of my favorites.
You know?
That's so good. Yeah, that's what we're aiming for, and we hope folks like it. So far, the audiences we've shown the film to seem to enjoy.
You can feel it from the trailer a little bit, but I think there's a little bit more of that.
Yeah, we're slightly funnier than that, but we're hopefully as cool.
Yacht is actually a good example for the video wall. Not only it's not that we use it because we can't go there for real. I think it really makes the photography better and the scene better. Like this, for example, in the script was like low sunlight, gorgeous. It was the end of the movie, so we knew this had to look special. So there's no way in the world we could go in a real place with the yacht, and it would be practical, but we would never achieve this kind of look and tone we were aiming for.
No, I'm never going on a boat ever again.
Did you work closely with your art department as well? In
Oh,
this?
absolutely. Andy Nicholson and our production designer, Academy Award nominee for Gravity. Yeah, he's unbelievable, and his sets shoot so beautifully. And he and Markus were in a pod in terms of figuring out how to execute this. And so the construction team built this yacht, or built basically 2/3 of the top of a yacht. And then Markus is exactly right. You have 3 giant movie stars, and movie stars out into the ocean on a boat is they don't teach you this in film school. It's very difficult.
Getting 3 grips out onto a boat.
But
It's very
getting 3
difficult.
movie stars from their trailer to the soundstage is significantly easier.
Yeah.
And we knew we wanted this golden hour look, and of course, magic hour, tragic hour, you get 15, 20 minutes of good light. And there was just no way to do it. And if you look at the final film, you would never know that we were on a stage.
To see, this is what gets me excited. I mean, I love the big, super big things too, but this is where I think, and especially with the car driving and the process shots, this is the size which I think once the price kind of comes down to something reasonable.
Oh, not only did we save money, but what's better is we got a great scene. It was better for the movie at the end.
This is like a big TV, essentially, like you're saying, Jared, right? This is like
and
a big TV.
Did you grab you grab the plates as well? Like
fun fact: Markus Förderer got engaged, and then he got married, and on his honeymoon in Sardinia, he shot the plates that we used in the yacht.
So you paid for his honeymoon, right?
Well, I think he paid for it with his wife, but no, he paid for it in more ways than one.
Yeah.
But that's what's so great about
That's
Markus,
great.
and why he'll be my first and only call for as long as I make movies, is because he cares so much about what he's making. He cares about every shot, every scene, every sequence, and so much so that on his honeymoon he'll go shoot the plates.
That's like fun fact. Don't want to go over, but yeah. So COVID hit, right? We had this shutdown, and I remember, what are we gonna do? It was clear for a long time nothing's gonna happen, and I got married and we thought, let's go for a honeymoon somewhere. And Italy was just opening up again. And I remembered from scouting for Red Notice, we scouted the most gorgeous beaches in the world with a helicopter, and we couldn't shoot it. So I thought, let's go there. And then I called up Rawson. I was like, by the way, I'm not our amazing beach. I was like, should we shoot plates? And then we arranged it.
You're supposed to say, no, wink, wink, wink. Responsible scene is.
But your wife understands lighting, so
She does.
That kind of helps. Yeah, she's a gaffer, so.
And this, I have to say, this is the best combination. Like, luckily I was involved in shooting the plates myself. This way I knew always it would line up perfectly what we're doing and what we're needing. So we don't have to overcover 20,000
Again,
angles.
planning.
And I think it worked out beautifully.
Did you ever have a problem shooting off the top, or you just were going to replace it?
I would put it on chain motor so we could lift it up for the right angle. Otherwise, we would have taken too many panels.
Yep.
And that worked.
It did.
That's fantastic.
I love that.
I think this is going to be a great film. I think it is a great film, and I think everybody's going to love it and be very excited about it. And I thank you guys
for having
joining us. Yeah, thank you. This has been amazing.
Thank you. Sorry for hijacking
No,
you
it was
once
awesome.
again.
You're supposed to hijack. Perfect.
Pleasure.